Welcome to the One Puff Media Podcast, brought to you by The High Index, bringing you real conversations with people shaping the future of cannabis. Join us weekly to go behind the scenes of tech and innovation powering the plant. Come roll with us. Hey, welcome to this week's episode on One Puff Media. How's everyone doing today?
Doing great.
Living the life, man.
Living it.
Glad to have you, Mike.
Thanks for being with us,
Thanks for having me
Mike Healey. Mike Healey, tell everyone about yourself, the Healey Agency, and how you got started in the cannabis industry.
The Healey Agency is up here in New Hampshire. I fell into the cannabis industry on the side that I'm in now, kind of on happenstance. Actually, I got invited to a mixer, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
Cannabis mixer?
Yeah, man. So actually, I'm on the board now. It's really
How
cool.
long ago are we talking?
We're literally talking. The cannabis industry is in January. Is when I really kind of got into it, right? Like I've been in and around it, I'm here in New Hampshire, but we're the only state up here in New England that doesn't have an AU legalized venue, right? We're only med. So I've been around it like my entire life. I have people that, that they're in the cultivation side of things. And so literally representing them, not necessarily that I get into it in regard to the business side of things. Obviously, hey, there's always been the right use for myself, in one form or another from, high school age on, right? We digress there, right? But at the end of the day, through my professional ventures, my background is actually in insurance. I spent a lot of time in the commercial world, and I ended up in the fintech side of things, both securing payments for business as well as seeking funding. And that rolled over into the cannabis industry. I met a buddy of mine, and like I said, I'm on the board now with this organization. It's great. It's about bringing the operations together with the ancillary businesses, so the operators and cultivators, mixing in with like the legal and accounting and regulatory environments, and just really, it's called UCAN B2B. We're working on building it out so we can do this again in another state and package it out really to try to bring the industry together and support the industry. Only after diving into it did I recognize how badly the operators and the people in the industry are abused when it comes down to the man, the Fed, right? And just
Taxes are high.
wanting to find a way to, try to literally help the growing industry grow, right? So that's how we end up having a conversation, I guess, right? We met at NECAN.
Yeah, NECAN is where we met. It's a phenomenal event. I think it brings together like-minded individuals in the industry that really are trying to grow their business and grow their authenticity and figure out where they fit in the space. And for you coming on, you said January. You talking about January this year?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, about as fresh as it gets. And so NECAN is a perfect place for you to really jump off with your business, try and understand how you can fit in, what's the best way to market. And what did you grab from that show overall? Was it fruitful for you as far as, did you gain some prospects? Did you gain some clients? What did you take away? Was that your first event as well?
Yeah, it was actually my first official event. I had being within it. I did attend it the year before that, but this is an entirely new perspective for me. I met some great contacts on the business side of things. Really, it was more of an educational experience for me as anything, and I really, truly research and work in the best interest and best benefits of anyone that I possibly can in this world. When I work with businesses and even in the cannabis industry, I call myself an advocate more than I do a salesperson. I'm there to listen to what they need and offer solutions. Right. So
did you have a booth this year, NECAN?
So I partnered in along with one of my merchants or one of my vendors, Green Card. You could have found me at the Green Card booth, but payments isn't only what I do. I do work in the cannabis funding world as well. So it's more of a, what can I do to help the people that I'm working with is my approach here. That's why I'm an agency. As an agency, I represent more than one specific avenue. Troop and debit's something I do. Green Card is a great ACH opportunity, but there are others. I can't talk today, guys. Sorry. There are other ACH opportunities out there, but really I focus on working within what the FinCEN guidelines are. While I'm relatively new, right, to the industry, I did take quite a bit of time to educate myself and spent a lot of time out there. And anyone who wants to follow me online, you can see there's articles out there from the research that I've done and the education that I've given myself. And there's a lot of misnomers around, my fear, honestly, for our industry on the payment side specifically is we've been doing a lot of work around and, the evolution of AI, and I've become privy to specific information, both on the Visa and the MasterCard channels, the way that they're going to start using it to combat both ATMs in store and cashless ATMs, because they don't necessarily fit within the Visa and MasterCard rails. especially their initiatives in the anti-cannabis world.
Well, some people say that they are giant monopolies, both Visa and MasterCard. So, I guess it depends how you look at it. And they want a piece of the transactions. And quite frankly, I think it would do a lot of good if that segment was kind of opened up for consumers and dispensaries. It would make it a lot easier. There's a lot of people who don't like that term workaround. And for whatever reason, we actually met someone at ECAN a couple shows ago, didn't we, James? Who was like, oh, I don't like that term. And he was in the payment side. Gosh, I don't remember who it was. But yeah, he was kind of they'd come up with a way to leverage cashless transactions at an ATM or excuse me at the counter a little bit differently than some of the other companies had. And so I said, "Oh, you got to work around." And he's like, "Ah, I don't like that term. That seems like we're skirting the laws and we are 100% compliant."
That's
so
basically what we're doing.
Right. I mean, let's be
End of the
real.
day.
Right? Because federally, if it wasn't illegal, we would just simply swipe a card. There'd be no issues. And every company and their brother would come out and be like, yo, use my machines. Visa would be the first one to be like, hey, put my machines on your counter because they want those fees. There wouldn't be any question or hesitation about it. Oh, you mean somebody can buy cannabis with a credit card? Okay. I mean,
yeah, at least here in Missouri right now, it has to mimic an ATM transaction at the
checkout, right?
Yeah, at the POC device or the using. But yeah, we have to go through enter a PIN number and then they round up to the nearest 10 after the total. And you get the money back. I think the bud tenders love doing that because they know they're getting an immediate
They
tip
know they're
right
getting a
there.
tip. See, I'm a heavy tipper.
I am too.
I like if I'm going in there, I'm usually spending a few $100s. I'm going to interact, and I'm going to hang out. And I do want an experience. I want to know what, especially because there's no way for me to, look at it, touch it, taste it, smell it,
Right.
especially not in Maryland or Virginia. So when I'm going to a dispensary, what other choice do I have? I rely on that person to give me the goods.
And they've got an ATM machine sitting in the lobby as well. And I got to talking to him one day and figured out that it's actually a little bit less expensive to run my debit card on the POC versus using the ATM. So a couple of options, but yeah, it's not user friendly by any means. It's not advantageous to being able to use whatever credit card you'd like, or actually, I can't even use a credit card. You got to use a debit card,
debit or cash.
Is that going to stay the same until it's federally legal, or are you seeing anything different, Mike?
So, federal legal, that's a whole other conversation we could take up 3 more podcasts for, right?
Right.
I mean, there's the stance from the cultivators and the dispensaries where they're going to be at, and then there's the stance as the industry as a whole, right? I mean, would it be good for the industry? And not to skirt your question here, but the question is, would it be good for the industry? And I try to, the way I look at it is I look at the craft beer, right, world, right? Like, we see that the craft beers have been embraced. The IPA world have been embraced. There's definitely going to be, there's always going to be a consumer for Bud Light. There's always going to be a consumer for high-end IPAs, right? At the end of the day, it's all about how the dispensaries model their business. But when you start talking about the payment side of things, unless the FinCEN of 2014 gets repealed and the way that they change the way that they specifically have structured the fact of how they're supposed to do business on the financial front, right? I see it getting worse before getting better, which is part of the reason my initiative, when I speak to the dispensaries, you have a great cashless ATM. And listen, the people that say that they don't like the word workaround, chances are because they understand they're using a workaround, right? And not to nail them down, but at the end of the day, if it's not specifically inside of what has been outlined as the way that they can do a cashless transaction, which is technically not even that's a whole nother situation. But FinCEN specifically outlines both a closed loop and this true PIN debit opportunity. As soon as you start going ahead and rounding up, you start talking about raising the red flags because now the transaction's basically there. It's a cover, and at the end of the day, we're laundering money, right? So unless there's a truly compliant basis, that's why FinCEN came out with that direction, because you can directly report those funds going specifically towards the transaction that it's going towards, and it's going to go right towards that registered ID. So it's tough. Now, the fact that the reason, and my understanding and speaking with a couple attorneys, basically the short answer to the reason why you can't use the Visa and MasterCard rails is because you are then crossing state lines, which makes it interstate commerce, which makes it federally regulated. So Visa and MasterCard are then technically in violation of trafficking a Schedule 1 drug. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's where the cashless ATM becomes a problem, because they're using those funds and they're using those rails to bounce the money back and forth across state lines, communication with the banks, and that opens up that door for us. So theoretically,
that's always going to be there.
Loop system, yeah. So by the closed loop system in the ACH, you're literally making a bank to bank, and there's no question about where it's going through and where the cash is going. And it closes those doors and makes it a lot more compliant when it comes down to it specifically. Moreover, and
how does that work? How does that work when, because that totally makes sense. Close the loop and kind of create this closed system so to avoid this interstate commerce component.
So then it becomes a bank-to-bank specific situation, right?
Yeah,
so
my question was going to be regarding that bank specifically. How is it conceived that if I have a bank that is in New Jersey and I live in New York and I'm still in that ATM situation, I'm pulling out cash from an ATM, the branch resides in a different state, technically that could be viewed as the same thing with using those interstate rails. How does that equate into I guess, the structuring of the system for the consumers?
In a nutshell, and the most high level view that I can put it is the fact that the acquiring bank is then directly sending money towards the merchant's bank, and the merchant's bank is putting that money into their account. Right. So the
it's kind of like a back door
is,
that the money's moving between institution prior to it hitting the hand of the customer.
It's a business to business transfer.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It's at the end of the day. And so like you as
the exact example of a workaround,
It is a workaround. But listen, nothing we can do is going to be compliant 100% when it comes down to that side of things. Look at you, even using cash, it's still a workaround. The difference is it's under the Fed's noses and they think you can't touch it. Right.
There's another dispensary I went to, and it's been, I don't know, probably 9 months, 12 months ago. But when I went to check out, they didn't have an ATM. They ran the debit card through. She's like, you're going to see, let's just say the dispensary was called Dispensary X. She's like, you're going to see a transaction from Sunflower Group on your bank statement. I'm like, oh, what's that? She's like, well, it's a company out of California that we run the transactions through that doesn't appear to be a dispensary. Have you seen anything like that or know if that's a legit
that's
deal?
a real workaround right there. That's a real one.
Yeah, there are some masked transactions out there, absolutely, that allow for credit cards. And, again, like I alluded to the AI before, because then they're geocoding where the actual transactions are happening. This is happening inside a dispensary, cross-referencing it. Like even having an ATM specifically within the dispensary itself is outside of the confines from what Visa and MasterCard's most recent bulletins regulate as being acceptable. Secondly, there's also, mass transactions like you just talked about. And that's how a lot of the ones that are using credit cards, because they're doing it in a very similar situation, they're running a process via the credit card, then transferring the money on an ACH basis out to the side. Right. But it's illegal. I mean, that is in its purest form, laundering money. But somehow they're making it around. Still working. It's a question. It's working for now. Right. But you don't want to look what happened with True Leaf not too long ago. They just got 18 months in jail. The CEOs.
What happened with True Leaf? I didn't hear about that.
There's a whole bunch of different things that went on, but the shortest part of it, they weren't using the money as it was claimed to be used.
Okay.
I'll direct you. You can go ahead and research my articles on the Healey agency, and you can, and there's all a bunch of sources and stuff like that. I don't want to speak outside of it without looking directly at it, but as I understand it, and from what I read right now, that's exactly what it is that there's some embezzlement inside. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and there's the misappropriation of the funds ultimately is where we're going to go with that. And that's as deep as I'm going to get into that as far as that goes right now. But a lot of it does. There's also the theft issue that you got to worry about when it comes down to the cashless ATMs and ATMs in general.
Tell us a little bit about
Michigan.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about other services that the Healey agency offers. You guys are full service, right?
Absolutely. Funding is one of the. I love to work with funding because capital in this industry is really tough, and so I have several firms that I work with. Some of them are PE backed, very diversified in the lending opportunities. It's more about is this a good fit for you? And we're not going to, once you give us our information, we're not there to beat you up on beating you down. If you're looking to get funding, we got a great opportunity for you. This is what we can present to you. And if it's truly risky, we have some equity-backed partners that are interested in going ahead and offering some money as well. So,
who's an ideal target for you for funding? Are you talking about dispensaries, talking about cultivations? What are
all the
you
above,
guys
man.
after?
If you're a cultivator that needs, $1 million to try to grow out another greenhouse or another grower or something like that, I got the opportunity as long as you get the cash flow.
Okay.
If you're a dispo that wants to work on maybe increasing the look of your storefront, something like that, we have some opportunities for you there. It all comes down to cash flow and average daily balance, and the fact that we can show that you've got an active business, right?
What about folks that are brand new to the industry that are wanting to get into it, that are starting to take the right steps to get established, that need funding? Can you help?
Startups are tough, but we definitely have an avenue, right?
Okay.
Because as long as you got some seed money and you're just looking to get a little bit of extra money to help some working capital without diving into your seed money, but you got 90% of us that are startups who are coming into this industry, they're not truly startups, right? It's like they've got some sort of a business that's been going on, whether it's 100% before that or not. There's some sort of revenue that's been generated around the industry, and that's really what we need to find is someone that's got some sort of revenue. Average daily account balance got to be about $2,500. If your daily account balance drops below that, that's when I really run into the problems. So that just goes to show you how small we can get to. But honestly, something over 100 grand in funding those are the ones that really I find the best way to fund with.
What else you got? Funding, payments.
On the cannabis side, yeah, that's pretty much what I got. The cannabis is more of a labor of passion. I don't do the insurance anymore, unfortunately. Okay. I got a great connection for you, though.
Well, so
I left the Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so being in New Hampshire, things are weird up there. You said it earlier, and I don't think we really touched on it. And many people probably don't know this about New Hampshire, but there is no adult use program in the state yet, which is interesting for how long medical cannabis has technically been legal in the state. It's been almost over a decade, or maybe it has been over a decade now. It was the 13, 14, 15, sometime in that time frame, the first kind of medical program stood up in New Hampshire. And they have a lot of different structures with the program. You're allowed to possess it is part of the patient program, but you can have up to 2 ounces every 10 days. And I think about that number and I'm like, it's a lot of weed. It's a lot of weed, 10 days, 2 ounces. They're either setting people up knowing they're going to go sell that to somebody else who doesn't have it, or they wrote it in there knowing that, man, these people are going to cook with it or something, because unless you're making a block of butter, chances are, or you're just having a big party, you're not going through 2 ounces of weed. Maybe you are. I don't know. I consume a lot myself. I'm sure a lot of other people do, but 2 ounces, you're just lighting up J after J, unless you're just putting eighth joints together, maybe massive kahuna blunts. I don't know. Mummy fingers, just different levels. So for you being in New Hampshire, are you in the medical system, or do you use neighboring states? Like I'm sure many New Hampshireans, is that the correct term for
New Hampshireans?
Hampshireites.
Yeah,
is it New Hampshireites? That
I think
doesn't
it's
sound right.
Hampshireians.
Yeah, I think we call ourselves New Hampshireites.
Really?
We are the
weird
state. But that's a funny question, actually. Used to be just, but recently, so the whole legislation, listen, we are the most conservative liberal state on the face of the planet. Like, if you look, we're split like right down the middle of the way we vote. And that happens at the state level and it happens on the Fed level as well. It's pretty interesting, honestly. But, and inside of it comes the bureaucracy and the way things that we almost had AU, but then the governor decided the only ability he was going to support it is if we went to an agency system, which basically turns the state into a cartel. Well, listen, we can't do that, man. Like,
that's what Virginia is now. Youngkin did the exact same thing. He came into office and said, I will not be the one to legalize recreational cannabis. Point blank. Said it, came out, I think it might have been its first term. And it's like, really? That sucks. So we were hit with that in 2021.
Yeah, AL's the same way. She just, I will not legalize cannabis. That was a running plant for her. She stood on. But Sununu was against it until someone must have talked to him and said, we can grease your pockets here. And then he came out, well, yeah, let's do it as an agency system, which is
how would New Hampshire vote if it went to vote to legalize it and make it for adult use?
Dude, if it was given to the people, everyone would say, yeah, let's do it. right? Like
So you think
if
it would get
truly
approved quickly?
if the representative of the actual people, the ones you see on the streets every day, were able to actually vote for it and went to a mass vote, it would be legalized. Absolutely. I 100% believe that. I
How
think
would it
that
work
it's the
today?
minorities in the, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask in regards to that because I'm not huge in all things political. But if you were in a state, for example, like New Hampshire, and somebody actually went door to door throughout the whole state, let's just theoretically in a week's time, and grabbed signatures from everybody, every like individual constituents of the state, and said, yes, we want to legalize cannabis. If that was brought forth and presented, can that be immediately moved into a law based on the vote of the people? I don't know. I'm asking. Like, that'd be super cool to see.
It'd be super cool to see. And that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, would it be? That'd be a really. I think the support for it would be overwhelming. Let's be clear. But at the end of the day, it's like they our government can't make things simple. We can't just pass a single law that says, okay, we want to attack this this one issue. No, the only way we're going to pass an issue law is if we're going to make a document that's this thick. You know what I
And
mean?
everything
That
gets
covers.
squeezed in there. It can't just be
It's more.
let's legalize adult use cannabis. No, 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 no. It's got to go stuck in the stack with everything else that's going to get passed under this bill.
Right.
And then it divides everybody because I think I think cannabis in itself divides everybody. I mean, it's not a main issue and so for that reason, it kind of gets shoveled down below. I can definitely see it as a societal or a government issue that's being addressed as lower on the necessities that need to be prioritized and addressed, right? I mean, you can't prioritize legalizing cannabis over dealing with the homelessness problem, right? So, from a moral and economical standpoint, what do you do? I think, though, that people are sitting around with nothing to do except create bills and laws, and that is their job, and that's what they've been elected for. So I do think there's enough time in the day, the week, the month, the year to do both. I'm a realistic man. I'm logical with time, and I think there's enough people in all sorts of government to resolve a lot of our issues if everyone actually started working together. But let's be real. We're in the U.S.
Yeah, let's be real.
Yeah, it's just not. It's just not real. I wish it could be, but hopefully New Hampshire can get there one day. Hopefully Virginia gets there one day. I'd like to be on the level of Missouri, be able to drive down the road and pick up something nice. Or for you, Massachusetts, how often do you take trips to neighboring states?
I'm in Maine daily because literally, like from my house, the state of Maine is less than a quarter mile away.
Well, I meant for purposeful trips, but I guess you wouldn't have to go over for anything purposeful because you're going to be there anyways. So double-sided trip for you.
Man, it's like going grocery shopping, right? It's like right there.
Yeah, and Maine's a phenomenal state with incredible products. Yeah, so when you said it earlier that you're just kind of up there on a conservative island, the only one up there not involved in it, and it's interesting because the state's so small and you have so many neighboring states. Like we were just talking about, it kind of falls low on the list of priorities. It's like everyone knows people are just going over to Maine. Everyone knows people are going up and down or left. They're going somewhere to get it. So I guess it's, again, not that high on priorities. But still, I think it should just be, it's not illegal. It's just not illegal. We're not going to have any stores because, we don't want to deal with the infrastructure, but it's not illegal. You can have one if you want, kind of thing. That'd be dope.
It'd be nice.
It'd be nice.
Like, but they've decriminalized it, so like cops kind of look the other direction, and it's like up to an ounce you can possess without there being any real issues. And someone rolling around with an ounce, it's even for rec use. That's as well as I do. Like back in the day when I was a kid, having an ounce was like huge.
You were the hit of the party if you had an ounce back in the day.
Someone had an ounce, like, oh my god, so and so's got an ounce, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
I had a little different. I had a little different when I guess it depends on the year, right? My first year of college, I may have provided things to people at a time, but I was so naive, right? I was so just no big deal. You hear all these horror stories of, if you got a scale, if you're going to put it in baggies, they're going to see it and you're immediately a drug dealer. So if it's only for you, they're just going to leave you alone, right? So I mean, first year of college, you think you're pretty smart. You think you're pretty good, right? And so I'm like, well, that's just it. I'm just going to put all of this cannabis inside one container, and then they're just going to think it's all mine, right? So it's my logic in college, right? So I used to roll around with this massive jar, and it was one of those big gallon pickle jars, but it was just completely full. And, my thought was, well, I'm not going to sell any because I don't want to do illegal things. So I'm just going to give it away, quote unquote. And people just have handfuls whenever they want. So this in line created an issue in itself, because then you're just handing out kind of handfuls of nugs, and everyone's smelling now. Now you just got people walking around with handfuls of weed in their pocket. So it made for an interesting plan as far as personal distribution went and carrying. But I think it's weird now that not weird. I think it's the right move to say you can have 1 to 2 to 3 ounces, just because why not? It should be your right to carry as much and have as much and grow as much as you like. But at the same time, just don't restrict it. Once we can get there hey, why am I restricting it? I'm not going to tell somebody they can only go buy 6 heads of romaine. To me, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. And people aren't told that they can only go buy 4 cases of Bud Light. So to me, it's just half backwards. And you'd mentioned earlier, New Hampshire going kind of a controlled state route. It would be like any kind of alcohol store that's controlled by the state in a lot of dry states and counties where there's different levels of control. It's all the state that adheres it. So you can buy beer in one store, but you have to go to a specific store to buy that's controlled and governed by the state. Ice, really?
Oklahoma, it used to be, and it may still be the same, but Oklahoma, you could walk into a liquor store, but you couldn't get cold beer, and you had to buy your ice from a different store.
Really?
Yeah. And in Kansas, like I live in Missouri, but we just moved over from Kansas last year. Kansas, you could not buy alcohol at Costco's, Sam's Clubs, grocery stores. So every grocery store would have a liquor store that had a separate entrance to it. Here in Missouri, though, you can walk into a Sam's Club, a Costco, a grocery store, and you've got a full liquor department, and it's all for the same.
We don't have that in Virginia. We don't have that in Virginia. We can buy beer. We can buy beer and champagne and wine, but then if we want actual liquor, we got to go to the ABC store controlled by the state.
Right.
And those have different hours.
That's exactly what we have in New Hampshire.
That's how it is in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Any sort of booze itself is sold by the state in a state-run agency liquor store, and that's how they wanted to go with the cannabis route, right?
So wait, you have to go there to buy beer as well, or can you buy beer in a grocery store?
You can buy beer and wine in a grocery store. You can buy ciders in a grocery store, but you can't buy hard alcohol, any hard alcohol or schnapps or anything like that. That's all done at the agency liquor stores.
I wonder why some states do it that way. You think it's for tax purposes? I'm sure no person voted for that.
Old laws that have been on the books for a while.
I think in part it's tax too, though, because in New Hampshire, we're tax-free New Hampshire, right? We don't have a sales tax. There's certain taxes we don't carry that a lot of our neighboring states do. Like if you're from Massachusetts, it's unwritten code that you got to make a weekly trip up to New Hampshire to buy your scratch tickets, your liquor, and your tobacco. And then they go back down to Massachusetts. Like that's just a thing. New Hampshire's monopolized. Literally, you can't come into the state of New Hampshire from down south or out west or east without getting like 3/4 mile in and finding yourself having a liquor store, literally right on the border, right? And the state runs them the scratch tickets. The state runs the liquor, and I think that's why they wanted to go with the cannabis route. So if we want to circle back around the legislation as far as that goes, what they did is they softened what it took to get med cards here in New Hampshire. And the biggest push that we're going to get, so listen, I think we're going to see a federally deregulation before we do at the state level, honestly, just because we can't get our heads out of our butts. But they did soften what it takes to get a med card. And we're working on pushing the amount of people, pushing more licenses for the med side available per 1,000 units, right? So like right now we only have 16,000 med card carriers, population of almost 2 million that potentially qualify for it. We have 3 licenses.
Do you have to go through a real doctor like in New Hampshire? I mean, do you have to have a legitimate reason?
No, at the dispensary, you can get diagnosed with a condition.
At the dispensary?
Yeah. For your small fee of like $300, you can get diagnosed with your condition. But we did open up reciprocity for Maine and New Hampshire.
Okay.
I think it extends beyond Maine as well. I think it's anyone who has a medical card. And so I think even in Mass, you can come over. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I meant to say Massachusetts and Maine. But yeah, I know Massachusetts as well. They can come north. So, which makes sense because they're, Lake Winnipesaukee is a giant tourist destination. Why wouldn't they be able to stop at a medical dispensary if they want, or one of the dispensaries around the lake and grab some, as opposed to carrying it illegally across state lines and all that good stuff. It makes sense to be able to hop on it, but we don't have tax at the state level either. So I think that that's what they really kind of want to do is they want to dive into the way they can tax it, which is exactly why they want to run it with the liquor stores.
So is cannabis not taxed, or it is taxed in New Hampshire?
No.
Really? Not at all?
Yeah, just don't buy property in New Hampshire. Otherwise, that's how you're going to get taxed here.
What about car sales? Are there taxes on car sales in New Hampshire? No. Interesting.
No,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're pretty tax free. I mean, there's like prepared meals. Sorry, so like if you're gonna order delivery, you're paying, I forget what it is. It's like $10.79 on the 10. So it's 10 cents. It's a 10% tax on prepared food, as well as like hotel rooms too.
Okay. Interesting.
That is interesting.
What challenges do you come across on a daily basis in working with your clients, your customers? What are some of the things that are just ass backwards right now that really need a change?
I think it goes to them understanding the fact that, listen, what I'm providing as well, none of it comes with a cost to them, right? I stay 280 sympathetic as far as that goes, right? So when I talk to a dispo owner or an operator, and they need to understand that I'm not trying to get them to onboard an additional cost, but at the same time, I'm trying to give you even if it's an ancillary, just in case the terminals do go down, I'm trying to give you something that's not going to break, that, is still compliant, that it's got a guarantee within it. And at that point, I just want to keep you safe, and I want to keep you cash flowing, and I don't want you shut down. And that's reality. It's not, so my biggest struggle is getting them to wrap their head around the fact that like, it's not going to harm you to have this additional line of being able to collect revenue.
What is it that you do different? Would you compare yourself to a Dutchy Pay, or are you a competitor like a Dutchy Pay within Dispos, or are you a little bit different?
So it's different because Dutchy Pay is a pre-auth, right? And so like you could be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go spend, 100 and X amount of dollars at a dispo and use the Dutchy Pay system. And they do an ACH opportunity as far as that goes, right? As my understanding goes. So, but then it's to whatever amount. So if you ended up wanting to break that, then you got to cancel that authorization and ask for another authorization, but the same account is going to hold that ACH hold for you. Right. So if you wanted to up the amount, let's say you wanted to go from, $150 to $250 to $150 hold, still going to stay in there. Right.
Okay.
So now you're asking for $250 instead. Right. And so now you're basically holding on to, was it $400 instead, right? Because now you've got that all pre-authorized, and it's going to hold until it actually clears. The solutions I bring you to the penny, right? And you can actually tip inside it as well. We could build out a tip field as well. If the dispensary owners wanted to get a chunk on it as well, we can build in a pass-through to them, because some of them on the ATM side of things, they get, like $1 or $2 per transaction. We could definitely build that out for them as well. But again, it's to the penny. There's no rounding, right? And there's no pre-auth, and it's instant, and it's next day transfer.
Why would a potential customer or a dispo not be interested in what you're offering? Because it sounds like a great product.
I don't know. I can't, they're just not interested. That's literally, I'm like, well, what about it? Yeah, it's just not something for me at the time.
Is it
what about what I'm offering you is not interesting? Like, the fact of the matter is, especially with one of my vendors, is the fact that like it comes in, yeah, it's got an app base, but that's your opportunity, right? The app is the fact that it actually gives you a line of communication directly with that customer after they walk out the dispo to turn them into your client. Hey, how did you like that? You can send them a message or an email or something like that. You don't have to beg for their information. Moreover, you get into the network itself, and then you basically get Weed Maps Lite. So if you go to, like, you're from New Hampshire, you go out to Maine or Massachusetts, and you go out to California, you can go grab another dispo right there, and so they're going to pop up. And then it's a trusted dispensary that you can go and spend money there and not get the shakedown. You know what I mean? I think that's right there is a really cool feature.
Mm-hmm. Is the issue, do you think, as far as apprehension or reservation to immediately switch over to your guys' services, do you think it's associated with changing out the process and changing out your existing provider? What does that lift look like? So if I'm an existing dispensary, I want to change things up. I realize, hey, maybe there is a better way. Let me do some research. I'm going to reach out to the Healey agency because of your value package. How do you ensure the smooth transition of the money, of the account, of downtime for the customers and things like that?
Seamless. I wouldn't ask you to run it until it's up and running. And also, moreover, I'm not asking to replace anything. It's an additional line of income or additional way to collect revenue. So that's as far as that goes. It's like there should never be a hiccup for you, and nor would I want to put you in that situation. I lead first with ethics and accountability, and I'm not going to and that's part of the reason I don't offer cashless ATMs, right? Because I don't want to set you up for failure. I think part of the hesitation may be the fact of the newness in some situations. People are afraid to try new things. I did run into one objection most recently, and that was the concern for the CRM side of things, where it does harvest client data. That it's not necessarily a CRM that's been put in front of certain regulatory bodies. I don't necessarily know if this holds water as much as anything, because it's literally just a payment interface. It's not as much a CRM, but it does have a CRM aspect to it. So that side, I don't know if it's not like
collect customer data CRM side from individual transactions, you mean, for future marketing and loyalty programs, stuff like that?
Actually, it does have a loyalty program inside of it for sure.
You've mentioned the term cashless ATM a few different times during the course of our conversation. I'm not familiar with that. I'm sure others would probably have the same question. What is a cashless ATM?
That was mentioned it.
Yeah, we met. That's you just. I think. Yeah, I think you described it first. You described it first. You brought it up first. I didn't even know it. Yeah, because you said, "Hey, that's what I do in Missouri. I go into Missouri and I can just use my debit card at the counter, push a button, and I get charged some fees, but then I can go out of there." Right.
So in my mind, I'm thinking over in the corner, there's a big archaic machine over there that's not going to dispense me cash, but a piece of paper that says, "Hey, you're good to go for $200."
Old school jukebox, right? Arcade style. You've just uploaded your card with X amount of dollars.
That's where my mind went.
Maybe that's the solution. Maybe we just have the solution. Think about this, guys. I mean, I don't know the answer, and Mike, maybe you do, but perhaps, just perhaps, you walk into a dispensary. You're a member. You have a sweet loyalty program, and on that wall there sits an old school style arcade token machine that's been now upgraded to replenish your card. What if you walk into said dispensary and you walk over and you already have your loyalty card? You walk over to this machine and you're like, I want to add money on my dispensary loyalty card. So you just walk over, you swipe your card, and then you're just going to go ahead and swipe your credit card and then add funds directly to that loyalty machine, right? And maybe that is the workaround that everyone really needs. And you can set it up digitally in your home. It can be available right next to the ATM. Well, you want to be a member here and you want to buy your cannabis with a credit card? Join our loyalty program. Yeah. Here is your membership replenishment card that you can do at your own leisure. I mean, talk about a win-win for everybody.
Right.
So that
we might want to coin this, guys. Let's we might want to cut this from the actual
because we don't want to get out there.
It's out there. It's like a gift card. You're buying a gift card.
See, I thought we had something good.
You're buying a gift card with it. It is out there. It's not.
So is that compliant?
Not technically, but yes, but no. Like that's where the ambiguity is. My understanding is, and I'd be speaking out of turn to actually talk to it, frankly, as to how that works. Because I know that some actually accept credit cards for it, and you're buying a gift card as a workaround, and then you're using that gift card at the dispensary. But like, how are the funds actually being used? And like I said, I wouldn't be able to speak to it as well as I would like to, and I'll be honest with you. And I'm the first one to tell you that, like I said, I've been in here relatively new to the industry, but if I don't know something, I get the answer. I'm not going to bullshit my way out of it.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm the same way, because right now my wheels are spinning 1,000 miles an hour because this is a massive industry issue. And I look at this as being way different than a gift card, right? Because gift cards you can purchase for somebody else. This is not something that you can purchase for somebody else.
One thing that you asked me about that I totally forgot to even talk about, that's on my back burner that I'm in the process of boiling up, because in New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, we can put vending machines, and I'm adding that to my agency.
See, I love that idea.
Vending machines that sell what? You're not selling pop and candy.
Weed, man.
Within a dispensary?
Age verified. Yep.
And
so it's either part.
Those exist around the country, and they're pretty phenomenal. You can find them in different states. Yeah, you can find a couple of different states.
So what do you buy, like pre-rolls or pre-packaged flour in them, or
Yeah,
gummies?
However the
anything you
dispensary
want.
wants to look, man, you can put an ounce in there and they can go ahead and buy it out. It just depends on what you want.
Yeah. But the biggest issue is using the ATM. It goes back to the question of putting in the cash, right? Or
So these
managing
work
the
with
cashless
the ACH
ATM.
opportunity.
Well, it works
so
with
these work-
ACH?
so
Okay.
there's APIs, which
That's
is an
dope.
integrated platform, right? Inside of it, so you can use an ACH. The majority
use like an Apple Pay or a digital wallet to pay for on these, or do you have to physically insert your debit card?
So like one of the platforms like I was talking about can be integrated inside of it as well, or there's a bunch of other different, like, so Dutchy Pay is actually one of the ways that you can do it. There's a couple off nets that are in there that go ahead and do it. Not off nets. There's a couple different ACH direct closed loop transactions that are available inside of it. But also a true PIN debit can be used as well.
It's interesting.
I've not seen one
So
of those before.
there's a couple providers that I'm actually working with right now in regards to the ones. And the really cool part is, like, I'm sure you've seen some of the really snazzy ATMs out there, right? That are all like decked out with like advertisement for like a certain brand or something like that. Well, these vending machines, we can do the same thing with. We can get them wrapped out in the true brand and be good to go, so they can get what they want on the side there, whether they want to brand out their own dispo, or if they want to brand out a brand or something like that, they can do that. They can use it as advertising space inside the dispensary if they wanted to. It's entirely up to them. And literally,
why would a consumer that's going into a dispensary already
people hate
take
people.
away? Okay, so fair enough. But a lot of people enjoy the personal interaction that you get with a bud tender, right? Hey, tell me about your specials. What are you guys offering? What do you have anything new, right? You don't get all that from a vending machine, but you're still going in the dispensary. If I'm going in a dispensary, I think personally I would rather have the interaction versus going over to the vending machine and seeing this or that and not real sure if that's what I want. And by the time you do get it, you can't return it. You can't stick it back in there, And I don't know. I think that people like the interaction.
Let me roll back from the people hate people, and go more towards the line. Like, listen, like at the end of the day, human interaction, and for some people really like it. You guys are both obviously extroverts. Some people just don't really want to deal with other people.
Facts.
Also, you're confident.
Like a red
You've
box.
been in it and around it for a while. You know what you want, right? Exactly, red box, right? Like, red box took over Blockbuster because they didn't want to have to deal with someone. Right? They just wanted to go find their movie and go home with it. Similar situation. Vending machines offer that opportunity. But moreover, let's say that you're relatively new and you don't really want to talk to anyone. You don't want to bring on you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to show how new you are to it, because a lot of people are afraid to, show that they're, you know what I mean? This is a new thing for them, right?
I see it. I see that.
You know
I guess
what I mean?
everyone's different for
let's say you already know what you
experiences,
want, and there's, and you got a bud tender that's ready to talk your ear off, and you're like, nah, man, I just want to go grab this pack of these pre-rolls and get out, right? Like, from this climate controlled vending machine, I'll grab that. Maybe I'll grab this.
Those dispensaries offer ordering online and pick up in a drive-through, or walk in and pick it up. I mean,
they do.
I don't know.
It
seems like the vending machine would be a reach for a real revenue stream.
Well, see, I think the vending machine is going to be outside, right? And I think, again, this is kind of how I would use it, in a way that allows your loyalty members, right? Because I keep going back to thinking about our previous conversation with Cam about the metrics associated with returning customers. And when I think about that, and if you can find a way to get your customers to come back and pay you money, even when it's not open, that's value that no one else is offering.
You get into a secured room.
Just like an old school bank, right? You go in, you scan your loyalty card, everything's like way you can see it. Then you have to go through the proper process. You scan your card and then you buy the products. But I mean, you definitely have to worry about security. I mean, right now people are getting ripped off, right when it closes. So this would be no different. People breaking it and stealing it. You'd have to be concerned with that. But I think it would also go back to what you were saying, James. Do you really need it? I'd question the value add
within
and the
a
ROI within it, but I do see value, if I'm on a boardwalk somewhere and then we're just hanging out and I'm just eating a slice of pizza, maybe I'm having a phenomenal night and I'm just walking down the boardwalk and, oh, look at that, a machine with joints in it. I might buy one of those,
so after hours.
After 100%. Yeah.
But I can tell you is that the test markets that we've done in both Colorado and California, which are some of the first ones to allow that to happen, legitimately, the vending machines can't be kept stocked.
Really?
They sell that fast.
Yeah. They
That's
can't
awesome.
that quick. And that became the problem. You just put two of them out there and it turned so much business that they couldn't keep it stocked. And so
So
they
you're
literally
just
just
sitting
had a
out there,
bartender
just
that's just
having
in
to
there
go every
stocking
couple
it.
hours to restock it. Yeah, I can see that as definitely a downfall. So in regards to those ATMs, these dispensing machines, is that the kind of stuff that people can look to expect when they work with the Healey agency, as far as your insight, your perspectives in trying to help elevate their operations, not just from a fintech standpoint, but also just, the full service that you offer?
I mean, yeah, it's for me, the large part of at least on the ACH platform that we're talking about there is it's more along the lines of turning a customer into a client. You want them coming back because returning instead of going and doing the tour, right? Like that's legitimately, it's a thing here is that you've got, and I'm sure that happens in a lot of areas, but especially from New Hampshire, people come over and they go visit every other dispensary, but the ambiance or the atmosphere is really cool in one or versus the other, something like that. They all just want to go check it out, but you really want them to come back to you, right, at the end of the day. And how do you do that? And that's A, developing either probably a loyalty program, as you mentioned, and B, offering some sort of way to reach out to them and communicate with them without actually having to beg for them to give them their information, right? And if there's a way that you can text and email and get that into your system, moreover, you're offering a full register. It's helping with the IRS aspect of things. And, let's be clear, this industry is audited higher than any other industry in the country, right? And if you were able to open up a ledger right away and be like, well, here's some logged sales for the past 6 months. You're trying to tell me that I'm not clearing my sales. Well, here you go. And I've got a ledger versus, that accounts for at least half of what they're talking about. It just makes life easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. As we start this to wrap this session up, I want to ask you're fresh to the industry of sorts, been around almost 2 quarters now, new to cannabis. What would you say to somebody? You came from different industries with MetLife and Bambo Bakery, and you've done a lot of different things. How do you transition into the cannabis space the way you have? And what would you recommend to somebody out there who's trying to do the same thing and just provide that kind of insight and the struggles and how you would overcome those and how you
Great
got it?
question.
Well, who wants to get into it? Someone that wants to get into the cannabis industry?
Yeah, I mean, you're fresh to it, right? You're going through the struggles of a startup in the industry right now, transitioning from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's the biggest little pond on the face of the planet. Do your research, understand what you're talking about. Don't try to fake it till you make it, and be genuine, right? Like, because this industry, that they'll sniff you out, just coming in the front door. Like, who is this guy? What are you talking about? You don't know what you're doing. So know what you're talking about and be there and be willing to admit when you don't know something, because no one's going to fault you for that.
More of that resentment with legacy folks, people that have been around in the industry for a long time versus folks that have, like us, a couple years in it, we're all friendly, wanting to meet everybody, and likewise, you are too. Yeah, I feel like you get a lot of resentment from folks that have been in the industry for a long time, and it certainly can be putting off of you.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I like running into legacy people because I like to open the door and ask the questions about. I mean, they have a lot to offer. So
They do.
that's where, you know, admitting, your adolescence in the industry can be a help, because even if you're jaded at your heart, people want to help. And if you ask to reach out and get opinions and ask for their assistance, most people are willing to offer that to you. So I find that, honestly, someone that's willing to actually have a conversation, it's enriching.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. It's about being humble. I think you said it best, coming in and just knowing that you don't know everything. And what better way to learn it than align yourself with industry professionals and legacy operators. And I think there's kind of an ego that you see from both sides. Folks who have been in it a long time, who think they know best, people coming in who have operated and been very successful outside of the industry, so they think they know best. And I think that being able to understand that this is such a niche market, this is a new market, it's in its infancy as an entire industry, like the 1920s, for alcohol. And so we're seeing this in real time. And
Controlled prohibition.
yeah, and that's exactly right. And nobody knows what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years. Nobody's going to know the landscape. There's going to be a lot of people trying to manipulate it to their advantage and find ways to create the industry around what would benefit them and their org and their partners and their businesses. But when it comes down to it, nobody has any clue. And so I think being humble is probably the most critical thing, because we're all learning about it. Even if you've learned how to successfully grow a business in the auto industry or the tech industry, and you think, oh man, I'm just going to manufacture this new equipment for this industry, it's not that straightforward, right? And so I think you're right, just basically about your assessment and getting in. And what would you say has been your biggest challenge over the past 2 quarters with just getting in front of the right people and bridging that knowledge gap about the Healey agency?
The biggest challenge is the fact that even in a situation where in other business, listen, cannabis is a passion for me. It's not a moneymaker at this point, right? My world outside of this is, I call it the vanilla processing, doing business with mainline business. People expect to do business, right? And the sales cycle is a lot shorter. I can, open and close a business inside of a day, pretty easily. But the cannabis industry, the sales cycle is a lot longer. It's like they have to vet you, right? And I guess if you're going to say, you asked me for someone new into the industry, it's that you need to have a presence. And the biggest obstacle I'm running into, who is this guy? And brand awareness, right? Some of the vendors I work with do not have a presence whatsoever. And the Healey agency has a larger presence than that does. And that's simply because I've been in the community and working with them, and especially with my work within B2B, working directly with the operators and the professionals in the industry. Quick shout out for that, actually. On 9/24, we're launching our B2B benefits fair. It's specifically focused along the ancillary sides of the business. We're launching a membership drive for B2B to bring in dispos and cultivators, anyone that's an operator within it, for free, where the other sides, like we'll call them professional services, CPAs, accountants, lawyers, marketing, etc., they're all coming on board, and we're bringing insurance companies and everything to the table. We're bringing about 40 different vendors that we're going to bring to the table in Portland, Maine on 9/24, and that's exactly part of what we're talking about.
September 20th.
It's about being able, yes, sir, being able to connect these people, because there's trust. There's a huge trust issue in this industry. We don't know who we can work with, right? And if you have a full legal team that's right there to work with them, and we have people that are vetted and true professionals that we know that we can bring to you confidently as an operator, these are the people that you want to connect with, and they'll be there at the fair first. So, and we'll have a really cool happy hour after, and we've got some great food options coming in, some really cool food trucks. So we're just in the infancy stages of building it out, but it's going to be a really cool event.
And where can people find out about that event?
Well, you're going to find us on youcanb2b.net, where you can email me directly, and I'm absolutely happy. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. You can reach me at mike@thehealyagency.com, or you can call or text as well. My cell phone number, 978-255-3088.
Love that. Just open it right out there.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fantastic. Awesome. And I think that tells a lot about how you're trying to operate your business, how you're trying to get out there, full transparency. And I think it's critical. I think if you're going to grow a business in this space, you got to be honest, not only with everyone you're working with, but with yourself and how you're able to serve the industry, really, right? And what your business is really meant to do. And so that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Speaking of serving, as we head into the weekend, Mike, have you served in the armed forces here in the United States?
No, I just looked that way.
Okay. Well, I was going to thank you for your service if you did, but definitely want to, keep everybody in mind over the weekend that has served our country as we head into Memorial Day weekend, and remember all those folks, and hopefully enjoy the 3 days and have fun this weekend.
Absolutely. Anyone out there listening, thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And with that, Mike, we want to thank you for having you on, and James, thank you as always. It was great seeing you guys. And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode where we spotlight more of the people and the innovation pushing the industry forward. And until then, thank you for rolling with us.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.